If you watched yesterday's video or have been online this week, you know that Chris Evans is coming back as Steve Rogers. The first teaser for Avengers Doomsday revealed that he will be coming back and will be a part of this film. As I said before, we diehard fans have known about this return for about a year now. Ever since Doomsday was announced and RDJ was announced to be coming back as Doom, rumors and many reports were making the rounds on Chris Evans returning. This isn't the first time Chris Evans will be coming back to the MCU, as he came back to reprise his role as Johnny Storm in 2024's Deadpool and Wolverine. That won't hold as much weight as him coming back as Steve Rogers, but it holds some. Now, with this return, we will finally get to see the life that he lived out at the end of Endgame when he decided to stay in the past with Peggy. This return has been in the making for years, and Doomsday will be the payoff to many unanswered questions. Okay, we know how Endgame plays out. The Avengers time travel to get the Infinity Stones in order to bring back the Snapped and ultimately restore the universe. One of the rules they had to follow was to put the stones back exactly at the moment and place from which they were taken, to keep the fabric of reality intact. If not, this would destabilize reality into what we now know as incursions. We know that Steve went to go return the stones, as we see at the end of the film, but we do not actually see him do this. We know that that version of Steve doesn't return, and instead Old Man Steve returns and passes the shield to Sam Wilson, as we know is the new Captain America. The final scene of Endgame shows Steve and Peggy dancing, revealing that he indeed stayed back in time after returning the stones. Now, the time travel logic is not clearly specified in Endgame, and even the Russos and the screenwriter Steve McFeely and Christopher Marcus cannot agree on it. The Russos explained that Steve going back created a branch timeline separate from the main one, and McFeely and Marcus viewed this as Steve having lived his life in the backgrounds of the events that happened in the MCU. I have always interpreted the notion that Steve going back and staying in the past created a separate branch timeline that was separate from the main timeline. I always questioned how Steve returned the stones to the exact times that they were taken. If I am wrong, let me know. But as it was told in Endgame, once you go back and change something, it cannot be altered. If this really is true, this would mean that there are multiple timelines where the Infinity Stones were taken and were never truly returned. If I am wrong on this, please let me know. We all thought that Steve going back in time was going to be one happy ending for the character. It is looking more and more every day that we couldn't have been more wrong. Steve chooses to stay back in time, and not only staying back with Peggy but also having a child or children with her was always going to have its consequences. And now, years later, is when those consequences will finally be revealed as to what really happened when Steve chose to stay back in time. The Steve Rogers that is set to appear in Doomsday is the same Steve Rogers that we all grew up watching. The Old Man Steve at the end of Endgame is not, and is in fact a variant of the character. There has been a theory going around that Old Man Steve has already lived through the events of Doomsday and Secret Wars and has seen the multiverse collapse and reset. He knows what is coming, and this is why he gives Sam the shield and ultimately does not interfere or warn the Avengers of the coming conflicts in Doomsday and Secret Wars, as he has learned not to interfere. This return might not be what most people think. Back in 2022, there were rumors of a Nomad Disney Plus series that was rumored to show Steve returning the stones. How true this is, I do not know, but this was the rumor. Marvel could perhaps be adapting this as a plot point in Doomsday, as that series has yet to come out, if it ever does. The beginning of Doomsday could be Marvel finally showing us what Steve did during the return of the stones, and if something did happen that was not supposed to. And this could be a trigger to the start of the incursions. Steve coming back for Doomsday isn't the warm welcome back that most fans think it will be. Steve will be a man displaced in time once again, facing the consequences of his actions. Doom is after all those responsible for the incursions, such as Spider-Man, Wanda, Strange, Deadpool, Wolverine, and Steve, among others. Those mad about the return of Steve Rogers fail to see the bigger picture of the story that Marvel is trying to pull off with the return. This is not a last minute ditch effort to bring back old characters in order to nostalgia bait. Is this nostalgia? Yes, but it is deeper than just that. The plot threads are there for this film, and I believe that Marvel will get this right. There is a way that I believe this return can go. I believe that Steve could be killed off to start the film. We all know that Doom still has to be established in the MCU. We comic book readers know what Doom is capable of, but for the casual audience that does not read the comics or have knowledge of them, does not know the significance of Doom. Doom killing off Steve and possibly Peggy to start the film would send shockwaves through cinemas, and what better way to start Doomsday no other than killing the man fans thought got his happy ending. No matter your stance on the situation and the return of Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, this was always going to happen. The notion that this will undermine the new characters introduced in the multiverse saga is completely wrong, and this will not only help the characters develop as we have seen before, but this will also add depth to the story. As the countdown to Doomsday begins, do you believe Steve Rogers' return is the right move? Why or why not? I'll see you in the next one, and as always, God bless all.